Josh Haston here, Israel Uncensored, on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. It is Monday, May 27th, 2019, the 22nd of Iyar 5779. Hope you're doing well in your part of the world. Get in touch with me during the week, Josh at thelandofisrael.com. On Facebook, it's Joshua Haston, or on my new page, Josh Haston, Israel Advocacy and Journalism, on Twitter at Josh Haston, and now on Instagram as well. We have a very special guest coming up here in just a few minutes. Laura Loomer, an American Jewish journalist who has been banned basically from every social media outlet out there. Banned on Facebook, banned on Twitter, Instagram. She can't even get an Uber. Her life essentially has been shut down by those who do not subscribe to her conservative point of views. And what's really amazing about this story is the fact that on social media, for example, Hamas still has, if I'm not mistaken, has an active Twitter account, and other terror organizations are able to express their opinions on the various social media platforms, yet Laura is unable to do so. So I was in a meeting yesterday with Laura and several other Israel activists to hear what her life is like now that she is off of social media, how all that came about, and what she suggests in terms of how to advance her interests now that she has been banned. So we're going to get to Laura in just a few minutes, but of course, we're going to start here with the news. Top story here in Israel today. By the time you hear this broadcast, Israel perhaps could be heading to elections yet again, believe it or not, and I can't believe it. Unbelievable. We just had elections here in Israel, but this afternoon the Knesset may vote to disperse itself, which is insane, in my opinion, to have another election, because as of now, a coalition cannot be formed. There is no solution to the crisis between the ultra-Orthodox parties and Avigdor Lieberman's Yisrael Beitenu party in regard to IDF conscription for the ultra-Orthodox. So we may be going to new elections, folks. I hope it doesn't happen, but it is a possibility, and I'm not going to get into all the details of the technicalities of why it's going to happen, how it's going to happen, elections perhaps in September. I mean, it's insanity. I'm hoping by the time you hear this, there is some sort of solution and we can save millions and millions of shekels and not go to new elections, since we just got out of the election season. So, but that's top story here in Israel. Let's see what happens. The Israel Fire and Rescue Services, on a different topic, on Saturday night declared the conclusion of nationwide operations to extinguish a rash of forest fires across Israel over the past several days. If you're not aware, this is, by the way, Times of Israel reporting, we had horrible fires here in Israel. It was over 100 degrees Fahrenheit on Thursday and on Friday. More than 1,000 fires devastated towns and forests, forcing thousands of people out of their houses on Thursday and Friday. 1,023 blazes started over a period of 41 hours. You had the community of Mevo Modi'in. 40 out of the 50 houses in that community were burned to the ground. Just a horrible, horrible situation here in Israel. I know the the relief efforts are underway now in order to provide for those 40 families who are now homeless. A lot of people doing amazing work for the families, but it was just a devastating stretch there over Thursday and Friday and the Lag BaOmer holiday, and they're not exactly sure at this point. No one has confirmed as to how these fires were started. Some are saying arson, some were saying just because of the heat, others suggesting that it was the Lag BaOmer fires. Again, I don't see any conclusive evidence at this point, nothing reported as to how all that happened, but just a terrible situation. And, you know, if you want to get involved, I can put you in touch with some of those who are part of the efforts now to assist the family. So get in touch with me. I'm happy to point you in the right direction to help those who are now homeless as a result of the fires. In other news, Israel announced Saturday night that as of Sunday yesterday, the fishing zone off the coast of Gaza will be re-expanded to 50 nautical miles for those fishermen who live in Gaza, 4 days after it was reduced to 10 miles. So here we are, back and forth, reducing the miles, adding the miles in which the fishermen can fish off the coast of Gaza. And this has to do with the fact that Hamas continues, and all their supporters continue to send over these incendiary balloons and other devices, which also have been causing fires in southern Israel. So they're sending in the burning kites, destroying many hectares or acres, and our response is to take away 5 miles for 3 days for the fishermen. So I'm not exactly sure why we are being so weak in terms of actually responding to what they are doing, burning down parts of the land of Israel. I mean, is that the best we can do? Take away 5 nautical miles and then just give it back in 3 days when they say things have calmed down? But I'm seeing here daily that the incendiary kites and the balloons are still coming over. Not exactly sure why. That's what's happening. I just don't get it. Anyway, on another note here, the Jerusalem Post reports that the German government's commissioner to combat anti-Semitism is discouraging Jewish community members from wearing kippot, yarmulkes, in public because of the rising anti-Semitism. His name is Felix Klein. He's the first federal government representative to declare that Jews cannot practice their religion in public spaces because it is dangerous to do so in Germany. And the Jerusalem Post asks essentially, why is it dangerous to wear a kippah in Germany? Perhaps here are some of the reasons, as reported by the J Post. Chancellor Angela Merkel's government refusing to ban the Hezbollah terror organization, 950 operatives in Germany from that terror organization. The mayor of Berlin, here's another reason, Michael Mueller, permitting a mixture of Hezbollah activists, pro-Iranian regime supporters, left-wing extremists, and neo-Nazis to jointly march annually at what they call the Al-Quds rally in downtown Berlin. Here's another reason why it's dangerous to wear a kippah in Germany. Germany's Social Democratic-controlled foreign ministry celebrated, another reason, Iran's revolution in February. In other words, praising or acknowledging, celebrating the current regime, the overthrow of the Shah and the jihadists there, the Islamists taking over back in 1979 in Tehran. So maybe that's a reason it's a little bit dangerous for Jews in Germany to walk around today with a kippah, for all these reasons and more. Nevertheless, the J-Post reports today that a German newspaper called, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, called Bild, they actually printed a front-page commentary, and they actually have a cutout of a kippah. If you got the paper, you could cut out a kippah, and they're encouraging people Jews to be proud and to continue to wear kippot in public in Germany. And they have this kippah on their front page, which people can use. So, I mean, I think that's a bold move on the part of this German paper. Nevertheless, the establishment is saying, if you're in Germany, do not wear a kippah in public. It is dangerous. That is the reality of Germany here in 2019. Just one other news item before we take a break and go to Laura Loomer. More than 90 delegation members have joined Florida Governor Ron DeSantis as he leads a business development mission here to Israel. They arrived just the other day. His first international trip since becoming governor in January. Ron DeSantis, by the way, I interviewed on this show, I think it was a couple of years ago, the last time he was in Israel as a congressman, if I'm not mistaken. Huge supporter of Israel, huge on the forefront of combating BDS. Florida, he's saying outright, he wants Florida to be the most supportive state in all of the United States when it comes to Israel. So it's great to have Florida Governor Ron DeSantis here in the country visiting with this business development economic mission. It's great that he's here, and I hope other governors across. Remember, I interviewed also Mike Pence, Governor Mike Pence at the time, before he was vice president, when he came on a similar mission out of Indiana. back in, what was it, 2015, if I'm not mistaken, December 2015. And here we have all the other governors should take the lead from these people, from Ron DeSantis and former Governor Pence, and bring these missions to Israel to strengthen ties in the business world, in the cultural world, education, strengthen ties between the U.S. and Israel. This is wonderful to see all these people visiting the state of Israel. We're going to take a short break and come back and talk about social media censorship. This is the Israel Uncensored show, Israel Uncensored, on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. Josh Haston here. Short break, and we'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Gil Hoffman, host of Inside Israel Today, and I'm honored to be taking part in the Shavuot of a Lifetime at the Mount Zion Hotel. Come join yours truly and other show hosts here, such as Ari Abramowitz, Jeremy Gimpel, Eve Harrow, Yishai Fleischer, talking about Torah and inspiration. What will I be talking about? You'll just have to come out to the Mount Zion Hotel.
Shavuot of a Lifetime, Thursday through Monday, June 6th through 10th, 2019. For more information, visit thelandofisrael.travel. That's thelandofisrael.travel.
And we are back. Josh Haston here, Israel Uncensored, on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. Just a short introduction. I mentioned it before, but yesterday I had the opportunity to be at a small event here in Jerusalem with Laura Loomer, who has been banned from social media. She is a journalist, conservative, Jewish, visiting the state of Israel. We sat down yesterday to hear what happened, how she was banned on all the social networks, and what she has done in order to try to continue living and making a living as a journalist, despite the fact that she has essentially been banned everywhere throughout the world of social media. So let's listen to this insight from Laura Loomer about the situation now involving censorship on social media. Laura, for those who don't know, has, as a result of her views and her advocacy for conservatism, for Judeo-Christian values, I would say, has been banned essentially from all social media, all popular social media, Facebook, Twitter, what else? Instagram, Uber Eats. You can't get a ride? Uber, no, everything.
Can't get a sandwich.
So that's pretty insane. And she's from Florida, and I'm gonna go ahead and just let her make some remarks, and then all the distinguished people here at the table, feel free to go ahead and jump on in.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and thanks for coming out last minute. I know that I kind of told Avi about a week ago that I'd be coming, and he put this all together. So I'm an investigative journalist. I'm Jewish. I'm a Trump supporter, and I'm an independent journalist. And when I went independent and started my own media company when I was 23 years old, my company is called Illuminate Media, lauraloomer.us. I started making videos in which I would confront left-wing politicians and jihadists and individuals who promote Jew hatred and anti-American, anti-Israel sentiments, right? And my videos became very popular. It was called Getting Loomered, right? And so within 18 months, I had acquired 265,000 Twitter followers, and shortly became one of the most notorious, members of the New Right, or one of the most notorious female, at least Trump supporters on Twitter, right? So that, of course, made me the subject of a lot of controversy and the focus of a lot of these left-leaning individuals who began their crusade of censorship several years ago and intensified that after the presidential election, when President Donald Trump, of course, was able to beat Hillary Clinton in a historic presidential race, much of which was, accomplished through this kind of social media revolution that we saw, in which a presidential candidate had used social media more so than really any other political candidate ever to bypass the negative attacks from the mainstream media and instead speak directly to the people. And after the election, too, a lot of the analysts said that if it wasn't for Twitter and it wasn't for Facebook, President Trump wouldn't have won the presidential election, right? Because you saw the way that the media said, well, Hillary Clinton's going to be president. All the polls are in her favor, right? They were pushing out fake news. And so it was up to independent content creators like myself and people like Alex Jones and people like Milo Yiannopoulos and Gavin McInnes, all the people, of course, who have now been banned, who were some of Trump's biggest supporters and advocates on social media, some of the most popular people. And so during the midterm elections, of course, after the presidential election, I had done an investigation into Ilhan Omar. And you know, Ilhan Omar is this congresswoman out of Minnesota who is very anti-Jewish. She's Muslim. She's a Somali immigrant, and she hates Jewish people. She hates Christians. She hates Americans, and she supports Hamas. Before anybody was really paying attention to her and before she kind of became this hero for the left and the Muslim community, you know, she didn't really have a lot of followers on social media. And I went to Minnesota and I exposed her. And I exposed how she had ties to CARE, how she supported Hamas, all of her controversies regarding the violations of campaign finance laws, the marriage to her brother, right? The advocacy for ISIS. I mean, it's just insane that this woman's elected to Congress, right? But that's what happens when you fill a community full of Muslim migrants. Eventually, they reproduce, right? Their kids are U.S. citizens, and then it only takes a generation or so till they are voting and electing their own representatives. And so after the election, when she won, I posted on Twitter, because Twitter had used her image as a moment, right, to talk about victories for minority communities and LGBTQ. And I said, well, isn't it ironic how the Twitter moment of a day is a picture of Ilhan Omar, who is pro-Sharia, right? Under Sharia, women are oppressed, homosexuals are killed. Ilhan Omar is anti-Jewish. Those are all facts, right? That's not an offensive or inflammatory tweet. It's factual information, which I backed up with my journalism. And several days after posting that tweet, I received a notification from Twitter telling me that my account that had 265,000 followers had been permanently suspended, okay? And for hate speech. And that's the tweet that they use as the example. And so then the next day, I was banned on Facebook for 30 days, right? So clearly it was collusion. So then a week later, what I did is I handcuffed myself to the headquarter office of Twitter and was able to trend #1 worldwide despite being banned. In January, right, that was November 29th. I got banned on November 21st. In January, the Wall Street Journal released a report about the influence that left-wing organizations and Muslim organizations were having on dictating who is banned and who is not banned on social media. And CARE went on the record with the Wall Street Journal. CARE stands for the Council on American Islamic Relations. It's essentially Hamas in America. It's recognized as a terrorist organization in the United Arab Emirates. They said that they lobbied Facebook and Twitter to ban me. And they were talking about how usually, like, they don't really get meetings with executives from these companies and ask for people to be banned, but they asked for me to be banned and then they listened, right? So then shortly after that report came out, I was banned on PayPal. Of course, PayPal was 90% of my income. PayPal is a payment processor, which many independent journalists use to make a living, because I'm not backed by a media organization. I don't have multi-million-dollar donors who are, bankrolling me, and George Soros doesn't pay my bills like he does for the leftists. So, it's very interesting because when they didn't even give me a reason why I was banned, they just said in a statement to Newsweek magazine that Laura Loomer's values aren't our values. And so clearly, they're banning me because of my politics. And then after that, of course, a lot of the attacks on me continued to increase. I got banned on GoFundMe, and my supporters who had GoFundMe pages got banned as well. I got banned on Venmo, which is another type of app, right? You don't even post anything political. It's just an app where you can, send money. And then when I was in New York City, the day before one of my protests at Twitter, Chase Bank actually suspended my access to my online banking. And I was in a cab and I couldn't even pay for my cab because they also disabled my debit card and I had no money on me, right? So this is the level of censorship that we're dealing with, right? And several of my friends who are conservatives have actually received letters from Chase Bank telling them randomly, you need to withdraw your money from the bank, no explanation. It's just, you can never use Chase Bank again. And this happened to my friend Enrique Tarrio, who of course was the leader of the Proud Boys, which has been deemed as, a hate group by SPLC when in reality, it's not. It's just a fraternity of guys who all love Gavin McInnes, right? So it's just absolutely insane, like how much power these left-wing and Muslim organizations have, right? Because the SPLC, which is being sued by Gavin McInnes and the Proud Boys, CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations, who I just sued 3 weeks ago. You're talking about terrorist organizations. You're talking about a group whose founder has been alleged to sexually molest his stepdaughter, right? Who just had to resign for, accusations of anti-Black racism towards his employees. And these are the people who executives from the social media companies are advising with to determine what is hate speech and who should and shouldn't be banned, right? And so then you ask yourself, what does that mean for people who don't fall in those categories? Well, if you're not a Muslim, right, or if you expose jihadist issues and focus on issues of Islamification, immigration, Jew hatred, if you are a supporter of Israel, if you are a Christian, if you are an American, if you are an Israeli, right, you're noticing that there is a lot of evidence that should suggest that these people on social media are being censored and restricted. And it's not a conspiracy theory, right? I used to work for Project Veritas with James O'Keefe undercover for 3 years. And they did an expose that showed Twitter employees, engineers on camera admitting that they shadow ban people who are pro-God, pro-Second Amendment, pro-free speech, pro-America, pro-Israel. That's not me saying that. That's directly out of their words, right? So they clearly have an anti-Jewish bias. Just to give you, more evidence of how they hate Jews, particularly in how this relates to the Israeli audience and Jewish audiences listening to this. Twitter a few months ago allowed for hashtag kill all Jews to trend on Twitter. So, it's like, how does that happen, right? Mark Zuckerberg said that's, he believes that he has a duty to keep hateful people off the internet. And so conservative pages have been banned, but then he was actually quoted saying that he was okay with Holocaust denial pages on Facebook. Okay, you can look this up. It's a real story. You can see for yourself. Then, about 2 weeks ago or so, there was a big story all over the world trending on Twitter. Facebook decided that they were going to ban several prominent conservative, journalist leaders. I was one of them. Paul Joseph Watson was another. Alex Jones. Who else? Milo Yiannopoulos. And then they included Louis Farrakhan. And what they did when they banned us, right, is they told all the left-wing reporters and all the left-wing media that they were banning us first. And so I wasn't even banned yet. And I was getting messages from reporters saying, oh, do you have any comments on why you were banned? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And so I was actually able to post that I was banned on Facebook and Instagram moments before I was banned, because they clearly colluded with the left-wing media, just like they did when they banned Alex Jones from Twitter and Facebook, to make a statement, right? And they declared us as dangerous individuals. Well, what is a dangerous individual, right? A dangerous individual, according to Facebook and their terms of service, is anybody who is a mass murderer. And these are their words, right? I'm not exaggerating. A mass murderer, a serial killer, or a terrorist. Okay, so I've never committed a crime in my life, okay? I don't think that any of these other people could be classified as mass murderers, serial killers, or terrorists. And if that is their justification for what a dangerous individual is and who should not be on their platform, I would love to know why Hamas is on Twitter and Facebook, right? And on Instagram. I would love to know why the Muslim Brotherhood has a verified Twitter account and why they're on Facebook. I would love to know why a whistleblower report came out days after they designated me as a terrorist, and a whistleblower from Facebook filed a complaint because Facebook is auto-generating advertisements for ISIS. Okay, you can look this up. It's an official whistleblower report. Is ISIS not considered mass killers? Are they not considered terrorists? I mean, I don't understand how I was then 25, just turned 26 a few days ago, a then 25-year-old Jewish woman who reports on terrorism, right? I'm doing work to combat terrorism and these mass killers, is more dangerous than actual terrorist organizations and hateful people, right? Like, so David Duke is still on Twitter and Facebook. Hamas, like I said, Muslim Brotherhood, ISIS, you name it. I mean, there's a million examples. Ilhan Omar, Linda Sarsour, right? Louis Farrakhan is still on Twitter. They banned him on Facebook, but he's still on Twitter. And so between all the places I've been banned, right, and there's a lot of them, I'm now the most banned and censored person in America, really, or at least the most censored woman in America, because Alex Jones is up there with me as well, and Milo is as well, but Milo, of course, is not a U.S. citizen. So it caused a lot of outrage, and it even prompted President Trump to tweet about it, okay? And he actually retweeted some reports with my name and a few other people's names talking about this, and it's really energized a lot of people into taking action. But, you know, it's something that I've been warning people about for many years now. Even when I had my Twitter account, if you recall, when Jack Dorsey and Mark Zuckerberg testified in front of Congress last September about social media bias, I actually disrupted the congressional hearing, and I called Jack Dorsey out for lying because he committed perjury, right? And he said they don't censor, but there's evidence, right? He was caught on tape, and I pleaded with President Trump on video because all the major networks were there filming this hearing to do something before it was too late, because the evidence shows and suggests that these social media companies are intentionally censoring people and amplifying their censorship now so that they can sway the 2020 election, because they want to punish President Trump and his supporters, people who got him elected by using social media, right, for him becoming president. And they're hoping that they can literally steal the election and influence the election by banning all of the supporters. Because if you control the flow and dissemination of information, well, you can really create uninformed masses, and you can make it so that people are totally cut off. They don't know when elections are taking place. They don't know what a candidate's positions are. Because let's think about it. Like, how many of you watch TV, right? But how many of you use social media? You're more likely to find out about a breaking news story on your phone by getting a notification on social media than you are to find out on the news. Because in the time that it takes for somebody to see something and tweet about it or post about it or write about it on Facebook or post a picture on Instagram, it's going to take a news organization hours to do that, right? So, you know, it really is a human rights and a civil rights violation at that point in time, because these companies, right, they have acquired so much power that they have deemed themselves the digital public squares. And if you have a digital public square and you're saying that this square online is where people communicate and they have online transactions, and that is where day-to-day social life takes place, and you heard Jack Dorsey during the Joe Rogan interview say that social media platform access is a civil right, then you're committing human rights violations when you ban people and you exile them from the public square.
So what, after all that, what can you do, you know, both personally, both professionally, and those, you know, who you mentioned and others, including people around this table, have also been banned from social media outlets? I mean, what can be done if you're in a position where you're basically cut off?
Well, I really am advocating for, like I've been saying for a very long time, right? I think that our representatives and President Donald Trump and, you know, members of Congress really need to update the Civil Rights Act, because I believe that having access to social media in the digital age in which the internet, everything is digitalized. I mean, even currency, right? Like cryptocurrency, they're trying to move it so that everything is technological, even your money, right? So the Civil Rights Act, I think, really needs to be updated to include protections for people based on political affiliation, and to also ensure equal access to platform uses. But, you know, in the meantime, I don't know if that's ever going to happen. So I think that there needs to be more done to create alternative platforms and more efforts on people to just leave Facebook and Twitter and instead use the other platforms. Because we can complain about Facebook and Twitter all we want, but until we leave the platforms and we affect their stock, right? Because that's how we're going to affect them. If people stop using their platforms, they're not going to be getting the advertisements, and they make their money off these advertisements. And by selling your data, right? They sell your data to third parties, and that's how they're making all their money. Then we can hit them where it hurts, right? Financially, and dismantle them. But, you know, it would be nice for all leaders, you know, luckily in the United States, we have a First Amendment. Other places aren't so lucky. And I know this isn't only happening in America, right? Trump has been vocal about it, but in the UK, it's a lot worse, right? You have people like Tommy Robinson, who literally spent time in jail, lost 40 pounds, was starved and abused by Muslims in jail because he posted factual information about migrant rape gangs in the UK. You have people now getting knocks at their door at 3 o'clock in the morning and having their homes raided by the police in the UK because they post facts about Islam or they misgender transgender people, right? So we're getting to an age where people are being jailed and people are being prosecuted and people are having their lives really uprooted and destroyed simply for posting opinions and factual information on social media. And that's a real problem, right? Because when you see that these companies are doing business deals with Islamic terrorists, they are platforming Islamic terrorists, they are imposing Sharia law on their users by telling people, oh, you're in violation of Pakistani law, you should get legal counsel, and you may be banned from Twitter if you continue to violate Pakistani law.
Had those.
Right? Why would I, as an American citizen, need to follow Pakistani law, right? Under Pakistani law, Sharia law, I'd be killed because I'm Jewish, and I'd be oppressed because I'm a woman. Under Pakistani law, as a woman, I probably wouldn't even be allowed to have access to social media, right? I'd have to ask a man to tweet or post for me. So you see this is a huge problem. And a lot of people call me an Islamophobe, right? They say I'm a bigot. They say I'm a racist. Islam's not a race. Muslim's not a race, right? But when you look at Sharia and you see how the Silicon Valley Sharia, as I like to call it, is advancing and is becoming more prevalent, right? And there's many examples, not just my case. What it really shows is happening, right? It's not just an issue with social media. It shows where we're headed as a society, right? It's the Islamification that is taking place globally, right? It's a concentrated effort all around the globe to influence, replace, and fundamentally transform societies all around the world, right? And you're seeing that these issues, especially the free speech issues, are most severe in countries where they have imported large amounts of Islamic migrants. So places like Germany, right? My tweets used to not be allowed in Germany because they were offensive to Muslims and Islam. So they blocked my tweets in Germany and France. Places like France, places like the UK, right? And now here in the United States, because we have Muslim congresswomen, Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, and groups like the Council on American Islamic Relations that are pushing to make criticism of Islam a hate crime in America. So it's Islamic blasphemy laws. And that's what I said when I handcuffed myself to the Twitter headquarter offices, right? Because when you ban people for posting facts about Islam, when you ban people for being pro-Israel, when you ban people for criticizing Islam or posting their political speech against Islam or Muhammad, right? Like there have been people banned for posting memes about Muhammad. You're essentially upholding Islamic blasphemy laws, okay? And that's very, very dangerous because when you start to impose, this digital or Silicon Valley Sharia, it's not going to be long before we have full-blown Sharia law implemented in society, right? And what I would love to know is why American companies like Twitter and Facebook on American soil have to follow American law, why they are implementing Islamic law for their users worldwide. I would love to know.
I don't want to monopolize. I just have one question here before we turn it over. What brings you to Israel at this time? Why are you visiting Israel? You said this was you've been here several times before.
Yeah.
Welcome to Israel, first of all. It's great to have you here. What brings you to Israel at this time? And then let's turn it over to...
I had a trip planned here, and I was actually supposed to be here a week earlier than I have been now. I've been here for about a week. But unfortunately, what happened was, I got banned on social media, and so it kind of derailed my schedule and really... screwed things up with my media company, my business, so I had to postpone my trip. But, I was supposed to be organizing a trip in which we take people, many of whom are Zionists themselves or aspiring to become more knowledgeable about Israel. And this year's trip was a trip about border security. And so we're going to take people to the border walls and the different borders surrounding Israel and teaching them about how Israel was able to curb their illegal immigration problem and really protect themselves and boost their national security. But unfortunately, because of the social media censorship, my trip was postponed, and it was also postponed because, my dad's getting married in the beginning of the month, so I had to postpone my trip. But I try to make a trip to Israel every single year, right? Last year I was here for about a month reporting on the embassy move. It's great. I try to come every year, and I encourage everybody to come to Israel, and see for themselves what's happening.
Fascinating and sad and disturbing. But that is the reality, folks, and that's going to do it for today. My name is Josh Haston. This is Israel Uncensored on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. Thanks so much for joining us. Big shout out to Ben Bresky, our engineer, Tabitha Epstein, who does all the work behind the scenes here on the network. Get in touch with me during the week, Josh at thelandofisrael.com. On Facebook, it's Joshua Haston, or at Josh Haston on Twitter. Also now on Instagram. Most importantly, between now and when we speak again next week, everyone out there in the wonderful world of ours, be safe. Have a great week from Jerusalem, Israel's eternal capital. Shalom, shalom.
Have you ever had Shavuot in Yerushalayim? Or has it been many years since you've had Shavuot in Yerushalayim? Forget everything. If you can, if you have the means, book a ticket. Come to Jerusalem for Shavuot. It's so worth it. It's so powerful. And we're calling it the Shavuot of a lifetime. You won't regret it if this is the one. Come out for an awesome Shavuot together. Check out the website, thelandofisrael.com.